Joining me now on the desk is Sky News Australia's media watchdog columnist, the legendary Gerard Henderson, in person as always, which is a treat for everyone at home.
I'm sure.
Now, we talk a lot about our friend, host of Media Watch, Linton Besser.
Yes,
Let's catch up on what he's been doing on his program.
Hello, I'm Linton Besser. Welcome to Media Watch. And first tonight, our most beloved of armchair pastimes, watching suburbanites wield power tools in the pursuit of fame, fortune, and in this case, the favour of colourful billionaire Adrian Portelli.
What are your thoughts?
Well, that's rather snobbish. I mean, suburbanites, what's wrong with the suburbs? And so he sits in his armchair and he watches suburbanites. They're all tradies when they're showing on the footage, and they're trying to make money and get as much money as he's got, I suppose. So it's a bit like Hillary Clinton talking about the deplorables. Besser talks about the suburbanites. But, you know, without tradies living in the suburbs, we wouldn't be in this studio, and he wouldn't be in his studio at the taxpayer-funded ABC. So I think someone around him should have said, Linton, look, you know, just back off a bit. That's pretty snobbish, you know.
Yeah, the demographic kind of sting.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's check in on 7:30 and Sarah Ferguson. Yeah. We've noticed a bit of a trend. We always talk about
yes.
Backing in the Teals. They love the Teals. I think we've got some examples.
Coming up, have the Liberals shot themselves in the foot in Farah if preferences deliver victory to One Nation this weekend?
It was just for ease of reference in terms of our how to vote card, and that's just the reality.
The polls show that there is tight competition between One Nation and the Independent in Farah. The issue that I have is that if the polls are as tight as we think they are head-to-head, the Liberal Party, the coalition, federal coalition, will deliver Farah to One Nation on preferences. And not only will that cut out a really reasonable independent, but it will also deliver One Nation its first official election win in the lower house.
Well,
it's the longest I've seen someone on the ABC go without being interrupted.
Yes, that's right. Well, Zoe Daniel on AM, I mean, she was introduced to someone who was frustrated. Well, who cares whether Ms Daniel's frustrated or not? And she's frustrated because she thinks One Nation won't win in Farah. But she's never had the interest of the Liberal Party at heart, but she's now telling the Liberal Party what to do. And it's the same with Sarah Ferguson. She's saying the Liberals have shot themselves in the foot, which is an old cliche, because they're going to preference One Nation ahead of the independent, the Teal candidate.
And the only reason journalistically that they're making this point is because they want a Teals candidate to win, and they're angry about it. As I think we said this last week, the public doesn't care who's being preferenced. This is a journalistic trick when the person that they don't like is getting some kind of advantage. And public doesn't care.
They clearly want the independent Teal to win. And so at the front there, at the front of the clip, the only clip they show was the Liberal candidate, and everyone's laughing at her. But she's a very good candidate, actually. But it's just barracking.
Well, tell me a little bit about Laura Tingle, because I know that we ask a lot of questions of the ABC, and sometimes they're not the most transparent. It's a bit of a problem when we don't know exactly where she is and what she's up to. Tell me about this.
Well, I inquired some time ago as to whether she'd ever been to Israel, to Gaza or to the West Bank. And I think if you're going to report the area, you need a background there. If you're the ABC Global Affairs editor, that's probably one of the most important places in the world. So you need to be there. They wouldn't answer. They said it was none of my business and piss off, that sort of thing.
But don't you have a right to know?
Well, the ABC pays money to join this Right to Know coalition, but its communications department does one thing very well. It doesn't communicate, so they don't give you an answer. So Laura Tingle's now in Jerusalem, finally. I don't think she's ever been there before, but if she has, the ABC won't tell me. And she's now reporting on Iran from Jerusalem, but you could report on Iran from Sydney or Canberra or Melbourne or anywhere. I mean, she doesn't bring anything new, but she's being paid a lot of money and a lot of expenses to go over as global affairs editor and talk about the Iran-US-Israel war.
Have you read some of her written stuff? It's just, it's very entry level.
Well, it's not very informative, no.
It's just dot points in kind of a blog format, and it looks as if they've said, look, we've got to justify this somehow. I think it is a legitimate question to ask. Is this person there, and it's up to them if they don't
get an answer.
Well, if they don't want to treat your curiosity with any respect, that's on them.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can tell the public about it. We can have a laugh about it. Let's talk about the Sorrento Writers Festival, because there is something that always happens at these writers' festivals. We know that there's a type of person that they like to appear. Yeah. Did that happen at the one that just came over the Anzac Day weekend?
Well, it was another left-wing stack. It was at the Anzac Day weekend, and there's a panel on Australian conservatism and its future, from Robert Menzies down to Angus Taylor. So what's the panel? Well, they bring in a panel. It's Sean Kelly, who used to work for Prime Minister Gillard and Prime Minister Rudd. Amy Ramikis, who's really a Green, she wouldn't get in. She wouldn't get into the Labor Party.
She's a legitimate activist for the Australian Institute.
And then they've gone Don Watson, who worked for Paul Keating and was a good speechwriter for Paul Keating.
Sure.
And then they've got Brendan Donoghue, who used to in the Victorian Socialist Left Premier's Daniel Andrews' media office. So what you've got is you've got three left-wingers and one extreme left-winger discussing Australian conservatism and its future. And there's not a conservative on the panel, and no one seems to notice.
I feel they don't seem to understand why that's problematic. And I think part of it is they've just got their little clique and their little group of friends, and they all think alike.
Yeah, they all think alike, and the audience all agrees with them. And but these things, it's a bit like a religion in a sense, but it's very boring. If everyone agrees with everyone else, it's very boring. But they present this as a kind of panel, you know, on what
they know about conservatism.
Well, they wouldn't know anything.
They don't have a single person there to ask what they think.
As I
That's
said,
the main thing.
I've made the point that if Sir Robert Menzies would turn in his grave if he was aware of that, if he was aware of this, but he was cremated, so he can't do that. So there you go.
Jared Henderson, thank you for your insights.